Hi, guys. Denise here with the TOWTalk Podcast. I'm here with Neil, and in this segment, we're going to go over a recent article in the Mid-Hudson News regarding a prominent local Democratic member of the Democratic Party. So, hey, Neil, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Well, just kind of leading off where we were talking about in the last segment where we talked about Jay Jacobs,
Mm-hmm.
basically, really just kind of saying, that somebody who is a Democrat and won a Democratic primary, right, is, that he feels that he needs to leave the party altogether, right, in order to silence that person. We have
So
sort
he's
of like. Right. We
so
sort of
he's
have almost.
stammering it off. It's him or me.
Right. Right.
See ya.
You know, to this going down to local level and sort of, something that occurred on the local level. So it was reported in the paper the other day, right, in the Mid-Hudson News. And let me see if I can share my screen here. Right. All right.
Oh, there it is.
So, I'll read this. People can pause the video to read it. But basically, facing potential disloyalty charges, longtime town councilman Eric Valentin has resigned from the Orange County Democratic Committee. Although he denies the allegations. Basically to sum up what some of those allegations are, is he lost his Democratic primary. Is
Yes.
really what it comes down to. He lost the Democratic primary. Ooh, sorry about that. He's running on a different line. He's running as a conservative, which really
That's
kind of
interesting.
shows you he's
That's
not a
interesting.
Democrat, right? I mean, like if you're
Yeah.
running on the, you can't sit there and say, these are my values, right, and then turn around, right, and then some of the statements that he made in here I thought were also interesting. The fact is there is now a Democratic candidate. He is clearly shown he is not supportive of that Democratic candidate. So therefore that's disloyalty, and he's continuing to run as a candidate on a different line. That's essentially charges against him, but he's denying that he's doing that, even though he released a press release yesterday that he is doing that. So, right, this is what I've come to know, right? Like he kind of speaks out of both sides of his ass, right?
Yes.
And then this last part I thought was interesting, in the article, where he kind of talks about, he wants to be part of a winning party and have worthy goals, right? And I have to ask the question. He's been in office, and this goes for any Democrat, right?
He was in a councilman for the town for a long time. I think it was like at least 20 years.
20. I think it was like 24 years or close to 30
Wow.
years. Who knows? I mean, but I think the one thing you have to ask, if somebody's been in office that long, okay, not what are their accomplishments, right? Like that's one thing, right? But what have they done for the party during that period
Exactly.
of time too, right? What have they done to build their party? Now, he talks about winning, but at no point in time did he ever put forth a winning strategy for Democrats. In fact, having been there myself and seen it firsthand, he actually went out of his way to sabotage Democrats in order to maintain his power. And his power resided in the fact that he went along with the Republicans, right? Like, we saw like Joe Manchin do that on the national level, right?
Yes.
We saw Kristen Sinema do
Yeah.
that, right? We've seen politicians take that approach, right? The idea is you're in the minority party, and you want to, have more power. Well, you have more power going against your own party. And it was because he represented a ward that was Democratic ward.
I was just going to
that,
say that it
yeah.
was predominantly a Democratic ward, and that was the only way he was going to get in. Because you have to live within the ward that you're going to represent. So he had to do
right.
that.
So what you see this a lot, right? This is why I mean, like, you should really go and interview the people who are running, because you see that a lot where people run under a certain party, But that's because that's where they're going to get elected.
Right. So it's a strategy.
Right.
It's a disingenuous strategy because you're not getting what you were hoping to get out of that candidate.
Right. So they never achieve their goals, but then it becomes safe, right? Because of the fact that Democrats, for the longest time have never challenged an incumbent, have never challenged an establishment Democrat. It's never been taken seriously. I mean, let's be honest. We'll go back to our last segment, Mumdani. He was like polling third before that primary. Like nobody expected him to come out of that primary ahead.
I know. I think he started out like at 2% and then shot up. But you know what? And this speaks to, having candidates that really want to be engaged with their constituents. He went out, he talked to the people, yes. And he got to know them and got to know what what they need, what they want. And most people want things to be more affordable. We are dying here. What's happening right now? Everything is up. These tariffs aren't helping. Nothing is helping. Everything is going up. So we need things to be more affordable, and that's the angle that he came at. And I don't think it was an angle. I think he truly means to make a difference.
And I think that's sort of right. You start looking at this locally. What did I say in the last segment? Mumdani was saying about transportation. Like he was talking about affordability. Right now, you have a councilman that's been in your town for 20 something years, right? This town has grown 10% a year. I mean, it's been astronomical type of growth over the last 20 years. Right now this town is actually has a higher population size than the city of Middletown, which it surrounds. Okay. And so the idea being, right, we still have dial-a-bus here. Like where is the investment in the transportation? We have way more roads, right? I mean, are we spending more on our roads, right? Proportionally, okay? Right. And I say proportionally, in other words, in estimation of the growth, than we were 20 something years ago. Like this idea of what kind of investment are we making into our community? And he just, his constituents have never had anybody else to vote for. I mean, you're talking about a majority. Democrats have never primaried him. The Republicans have never put up a serious challenger against him. So for 20 something years, okay, he has longevity, but he's never had a challenger.
He's never had a challenge. He's had it easy, and that's a big problem. And we see this with whether it's in Congress or it's in the state legislature, where there are no term limits. You have people who can just repeatedly come in over and over and over and over, and nobody, you get to the ballot box and you say, well, I know that name and he's been there, so he must have experience. But what you don't realize is that you're also letting them expand their power without a challenge, without having other choices. They've basically taken the choice away from you, right?
There's no accountability.
This is what Neil is saying. Neil is telling you that your choices are being taken away. So you have his ward was a predominantly Democratic ward, even though he's a conservative. He ran as a Democrat. The party accepted him as such. And since the Republicans knew he was conservative, they didn't run anyone against him, and the Democrats accepted him year after year. So there were no other choices available until, he decided to go for the state legislature.
So, in the county legislature.
County legislature.
County legislature.
Okay.
And he had a Democratic opponent. So there was a primary, and Democratic voters overwhelmingly voted for his opponent. And what does that say about somebody who's been in office for 20 plus years, right? Who the constituents now know, and they've said no. So, at that point in time, you gracefully say, thank you very much. I enjoyed my time in public life. I think I did some good works, and, you move on. You move on to the
exactly.
next thing.
Exactly.
You take your appointment somewhere. Somebody will give you an appointment somewhere to a job, and you take your appointment and you go into the sunset.
Yeah.
It just. But for Democrats, I think this was a good thing. This was a sign that they're taking the election seriously, that they
You
are
have
moving
to.
in a different direction, and the direction is looking out for constituents, being more in tune with what the constituents want in their respective areas and being more responsive to those constituents in those areas. I've been hearing a lot about that lately, and it's a good thing. It's a good
It's a
thing.
very good thing. And we're seeing that. We're seeing more, and I've mentioned this before. We're seeing more younger, more progressive candidates with fresh ideas, and I think that's Deshonda Carter, DJ Carter, is the Democratic candidate for that position. She's the one who beat Eric Valentin, Mr. Valentin, and she is speaking of transportation. We interviewed her briefly at a picnic, at the Democratic picnic back in August, and she mentioned that, and I think we spoke to her and Monisha Maldonado, and they
Yep.
both were talking about transportation options. We have a lot of people that have moved up here from the city, and so they're not used to driving. They're used to having many of them didn't even have a car in the city because it was just so much easier. You can get to a subway, you can get to a bus. There's options all over the place, and so we've grown so much that they're looking for that kind of an option, whether it be a county bus line or at least a town bus line that can get people, back and forth to the supermarket, back and forth to their local jobs. And I think it's a
It's
great
so
idea.
much. It's so much more than, I mean, to be in this. So Orange County is the furthest outside the city that you can live and still be a municipal worker in the city. But there's no direct train line into the city. You want a direct train line into the city, you got to go over to Beacon. For people who may not be in the area who don't understand that, right? It's like you got to cross a $10 bridge to get
To get
take
there.
a train, right? It's been 50 minutes on a train to get to the city. So it's like you're not talking about a short bit of time. You're talking about a lot of travel,
A lot of
or
travel.
you could take the train, from Middletown or Townawalko, wherever you want to take the train from here, and you could take it to Hoboken or Secaucus, and then take another train. Then you have to get on
To
another
come
train
over. Yep.
to
And then
get
a
to the
subway
city.
to get up to your street, or a bus or whatever. Oh, yeah. I did it. I did it for 20 years almost.
Yeah, so did I. I did it, and it was it's
It sucked. It sucks the
it
life
was like
out of
4 hours a day, 4 hours a day,
At least.
just commuting. And not for nothing, a lot of people have just taken their driving, and driving. You're talking taking your 2 hour commute via train and bus, versus driving, which is an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well,
Pick your poison.
that's why I ran a van pool, and I did that with a van pool, but you had to leave, like really early to beat all the traffic so you could get down there in an hour and 15 minutes and get parked at the Port Authority. We go through the tunnel and get parked over there. But, the cost of parking we split, the cost of the van, the cost of fuel. I mean, it's expensive either way, just getting back and forth. So, but,
you want to run, but if you want to run for local office, you want to be on the county legislature, you want to be on your town board, right? Like, I'm like really encouraging people this year to understand what the jobs are that people are running for, and and conduct an interview like anybody else. Like, this is a job that somebody's vying for. I mean, how many jobs have you ever gone for in your life where the company just gave you the job and didn't interview you?
right. No, never.
Right.
Sure, you're hired.
Right. It's literally like, here's my resume, hire me. Right. Like, I mean, stupid. Nobody would do that. And you have one candidate with a long history of basically, negligent fiduciary responsibility. Do you expect that you're going to get something different if he ends up in the county legislature? And I think you got to start looking at those things. Like,
Yeah.
what are the basics of the job? Like, if somebody's running for your local town board, they're running a business, right? They're running a small, like, multi-million-dollar business. Here in the town of Wackel, you're talking, $35 million business. Excuse me, I want to know if I'm hiring somebody for a $35 million business that they know what the hell they're doing. Not for nothing. That's what I would want, whether you're a board member or especially when you're managing 200 plus employees, do they have experience managing people? Like
Exactly.
basic things, county legislature, a little bit different, but similar, do you know how to read a budget? Basic. Do you know how to read a budget? Do you know what services the counties should be providing? Every other county around the area has gotten ambulance services, EMS ambulance services, right? So the county is providing those services to take the stress off the towns providing those services, or the local municipalities, right? Orange County now is the only one in the area that doesn't provide countywide EMS services.
I think even Sullivan has an EMS.
Dutchess, Ulster got one, Rockland County got one. All around us, they're doing it because the state isn't doing it. So the counties are stepping in because they don't want the local towns and local municipalities and cities to have to fund it out of their budget. Because
and do you think that's why we don't?
That way.
Is that why you think we don't have it here in Orange?
I don't really. I mean, you're not being mandated to do it, so why? Right? Like, I mean, the question becomes like who's in charge, right? Who are you looking at in charge, and where in the leadership that's in charge, right? So, some county executives say, this is imperative. I need to protect my citizens, and this is how I'm going to do it. I mean, there are different philosophies in government where people say, you know what, not every municipality cares. So it's really kind of up to your local municipality to provide that service.
I would think we would need a county-wide ambulance services. We've had a number of serious accidents on our highways here, especially on I-84. That gets really bad, particularly in the wintertime. We've seen some rather horrific crashes. So having, an emergency service that can just go right in and handle that, it would just take the load off hospitals and other services, other ambulance services.
Right. I've said it before. Sometimes we're 50 states, sometimes we're one nation. Same thing goes for your state. Sometimes we're 200 plus municipalities, right? Or whatever it is. I don't even know the number. I think it's 400, whatever it is, right? And sometimes you're one state. All right. And the idea being, how are our officials spending our money, right?
Yeah.
What are they spending our money on? Like, there isn't any transparency. We hear about all these great programs, but those programs are a lot of times small in comparison to what's going out the door for other things. And I don't think people really care. I think people just say, well, somebody higher than me will figure it out. And it really doesn't matter at this point. And I think now we're starting to realize, well, it's going to matter soon because most of these bills are coming due and they're going to be put on us as homeowners and taxpayers and,
Yeah.
And down to the local level.
Yeah. And so buckle up, people.
But I think from getting back, right, it's countywide EMS, countywide transportation. You cannot get from one side of the county to the other side of the county via public transportation.
Right. You either have a car or you got to pay for a cab, or there is some Uber out here.
Right. You want to develop, you want businesses to come to your area. How are you getting your workforce to those businesses?
Exactly.
Flat out. I'm not even talking about like some of your seniors and others, like getting to the supermarket and getting, like voting and
That's
all that.
what those Town of Wallkill bus does. That's what, or Dial a Bus does. That's for them.
But those things are important. But for you to have a thriving community, right? You need commercial businesses. You need your commercial businesses to grow. You need to be able to attract commercial businesses that keep your property taxes low and allow you the affordability to live in an area, right? Like I keep going back to this symbiosis, right? Like we're all in the society together. We're either all in the same boat together or we're all sinking together on our own on a plank, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it boggles my mind. Just like these are basic needs, and as we grow as a community, as not only a county but as towns and local municipalities, like where is this investment?
Right. Yep. And I think in maybe in the next segment, we can expand on that because I always want to bring up the issues with the warehouse growth. So I want to expand on that. So we're going to do that in a separate segment because that'll probably end up being a much longer conversation. All right. So that's it for this segment. We've got more to come. Stay tuned. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you think of our cool opening. All right. And we will talk to you soon, guys. Take care.